and welcome to Get the Table, another Wrestling Roundtable discussion podcast with myself, Adam Wilborn, and the Dadley Boyz of WhatCulture, Michael Hamfler and Michael Sidgwick, here to discuss another burning wrestling issue. And that issue today is the return of Adam Cole to AEW and what we should expect going forward. First of all, though, Sid, your reaction to last night?
Yeah, it was absolutely tremendous. Like, really heartwarming to see someone who is genuinely beloved within the industry and by his fans come back after what sounded like an absolutely harrowing and very, very severe, very serious ordeal. You'd have to kind of be a sociopath at this point, even if you don't enjoy his work, and some people don't, to not just enjoy the fact that he is back, and he seemed ecstatic. And again, I made this point in the podcast, which, of course, on Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, you can listen to right now, along with a whole host of others. But ultimately, he looked ecstatic to be there, and yet the man still worked me into thinking he was going to retire.
Yeah.
So that's how good of a worker he is. He showed a glimpse of that last night, and I'm very excited about what he does next, even if I've kind of got no clue what it is, but that's what we're here for.
Yeah, exactly. It was a great promo, of course, Hamfler, and a babyface side of Adam Cole that we've not seen for far too long.
Yeah. And really not ever on a level this big, on a platform this big. Never in WWE or NXT when it looked so many times.
Was there a month? Like a month when he was sort of aligned with Finn Balor?
Well, the Undisputed Era defeated Pat McAfee's crew in War Games, and they were kind of the de facto babyfaces, and Cole was the leader of that group. No, and even then, if you recall, it was like almost this backdoor pilot for Kyle O'Reilly's push, which they then lent into with Cole turning. Certainly, yeah, never on a platform this big as the one he's on right now, like a weekly television babyface. Even before it was clear that the babyface turn, which was happening organically because he was describing obviously the nature of his injuries and the things he was recovering from, it already felt like AEW had just gained a brand new star because you'd been allowed to kind of forget about Adam Cole. He was rather unfairly, I think, maligned as a result of being so frequently featured on television that when he went away injured, there was obvious concern. He referenced that concern. There was obvious concern. Everybody felt it because he comes across as such a nice guy. But he was somebody that, if there hadn't been injuries and they'd just selected to give him a break from television, you'd maybe have welcomed it. It was only the circumstances with which he was off television that you were worried for him. So to get him back unexpectedly genuinely feels like a treat. They've been smart in how, or they maybe asked him to keep it quiet, or he's just decided to keep it quiet. AEW's been recalibrating a little bit after the events with All Out and CM Punk and things like that. And it was just feeling like, oh, everybody's back. And nobody thought to mention Adam Cole. Yeah. So it did honestly feel like getting a new signing, much like it did when he first came in last time, not least now as a babyface, when it felt like within the 8 months he was on television, it already felt like he'd explored just about everything he needed to do right away as a heel. So it feels like the right time to turn him as well.
Yeah, it's one of those things as well where the new signing thing actually feels accurate. There's like that phrase, rather, is cursed for football fans, or at least it was under the Mike Ashley era, where you'd have some puppet of a manager say, oh, he's coming back, and it's like a new signing. Well, what's more like a new signing is a new signing. Spend some money and get us out of this rubbish trouble that we're in. No, it genuinely feels like it could be a makeover, a make good.
Yeah.
And he himself alluded to the fact that he wants to do more and he knows he can do better. And I believe that as well, so I'm really looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, after he hit the old Uno reverse on the AEW locker room, he alluded to going after the world title. And we'll talk in due course about that and a potential feud with MJF and the outcome of all that. But in terms of starting him back up, where does he slot in for you?
I mean, it's a bit tricky at the moment. We were talking about this before we came in to record, like doing some prep and looking right now. It's not so much just a lack of heels, but it's a lack of heels with nothing to do. It's kind of it might sound a bit generous, but it feels like a little bit of a credit that lately Tony Khan just feels like everybody featured is featured. They're involved in a story. They're hooked up with something else. So this might feel like a bit of a lazy take, but I was just looking to the firm just because there's enough guys. There's a few high quality matches, TV matches especially, that Adam Cole is can kind of do in his sleep at this point, but especially as a babyface with his call and response stuff, the likes of an Ethan Page or Lee Moriarty won't set the world on fire from a narrative point of view, let's be honest. But you'll see the graphic, you're going to get the delivery of a solid to good to very good TV match, and Adam Cole, sort of the re-establishing matches of him as a babyface. I think the firm are perfect for that because you do need people that can eat losses and just let Adam Cole sort of, I know the rankings aren't as put upon as they used to be, but if you imagine there's still a loose framework of having to assemble wins, they're warm bodies for him almost to step across. You're not really killing the heat of a top heel. you're not feeding them to Adam Cole. Oh, this returning hero's come back and everything that you've done now doesn't matter because you're losing to Adam Cole. They're kind of perfectly placed, I would say, right now. And the work as well has got to stand out. Adam Cole as a babyface, I think we know can do it, but he's a low-key, very spectacular wrestler. But what he does sometimes is tries to hide it by playing defense. Like as a heel, he does that thing where he tries to cut off and he tries to slow down. But when you go up the gears in the last stage of the matches, you'd be forgiven for thinking he was a babyface because he's involved in some of these really spectacular. He doesn't necessarily do all the high spots, but he's the other half of one. And I think getting to see him like tweak that just a little bit as a babyface, someone like against Moriarty especially, I think, would immediately re-establish him as this working babyface, as well as doing all the character stuff and how people have yearned to chant Adam Cole baby and it not be to the sneering heel. It's not just about the chance, it's about what he can do bell to bell as well.
Just thinking then, as Hamlet was talking about potential opponents, is it worth, or would you, Sige, because we've got Danielson, MJF kind of certain to be happening at the next pape. So you're looking maybe, I mean, it could be a TV match, but I think Adam Cole merits a title shot on pay-per-view. In the interim, do you have him go after any sort of more mid-card titles?
I don't know. Look, I think AEW does a tremendous job of its secondary, into completely against my predictions as well. It's done a fantastic job of that tertiary men's singles title in the All Atlantic, but I feel like still, if you compete for that title, you kind of instantly stigmatized as mid-card upper, and they see him as a legit main eventer. Yeah. In fact, he is a legit main eventer, having headlined Revolution. So I don't necessarily think it's the best idea for someone they really consider a grade A star. They really do internally in that organization. And of course, he's got tons of support and empathy and encouragement. So people will want to take that journey with him if in fact it does happen with him as a babyface. That's still up for debate. It really is. I think that we'll get onto this momentarily, the implications with the Elite saga as it involved Adam Cole and how cursed and wrong it all went. And yeah, the dynamic is so strange that I'm looking forward to talking about that imminently. But for me, this might be pie in the sky, considering that the relationship doesn't seem like it's particularly healthy or, harmonious at this point. But it's fantasy booking. And instead of the boring option, and possibly the inevitable option of, it's Adam Cole versus Tony Nese one week and then Jay Lethal the next. Maybe Miro could be coaxed from this sort of exile he's in just because Adam Cole seems to be the nicest guy. Will you do a job? No. Will you do a job for Adam Cole? Yes. Maybe it's as simple as that. Yeah. Ultimately, I think Miro Cole could be a really good dynamic. Yeah. And if you are going to push him as a big-time babyface, it's just a shame that allegedly Miro doesn't want to do things. That is kind of the gossip. And it's a shame because him versus Adam Cole would be such a great platform on which Adam Cole can really execute this babyface turn. If in fact it's happening, we'll discuss other options, right now, I guess.
Yeah, what happens with the Elite then? I know you want to get onto this because that was, he was involved in that when he disappeared, but the Elite is very changed from, the way they're presented at least is different from then.
Yeah, it's all very, very difficult to parse this because the dynamic has changed since everything got cursed. So as Adam Cole, we last saw him, the Young Bucks had tried to go to Hangman Page, didn't really consider Bobby Fish to go for these trios titles before they did the storyline with Kenny Omega coming back from injury. So they're not on good terms as characters in this storyline. Now, at Full Gear, when Kenny Omega, who we know is desperate to work with Adam Cole, he raves about him like everybody else does in wrestling. But on a genuinely professional level, he really wants to work with Adam Cole. I've read many media interviews with Omega where he's expressed that desire in the past. So basically their paths haven't crossed since I believe the Full Gear after the Dynamite after Full Gear 2021, when Adam Cole dropped the Cleaner I Got This reference, and Omega said actually I was talking about the Bucks when they said keep it all busy and good when I'm away, and at that point Kenny Omega was the heel and Adam Cole was also a heel. And I think the storyline was trending in the direction because it was Adam Cole trying to lure the Bucks into Red Dragon, and they were the more heel-leaning part of that unit. And I thought that the babyface Kenny Omega would try and take back the Young Bucks from Adam Cole. That is all completely gone. And at this point, and I'm not necessarily saying this as a criticism, but I don't know what the Elite are at this point. They were heels when Full Gear 2021 finished. They've been playing situational all over the place upon Kenny Omega's return. He's a full-blown heel and a brilliant one, and like an already legendary one in New Japan at this moment in time. That version of Kenny Omega, he could just subvert the dynamic. And they're so fluid a lot of the time that I don't think it would matter. Where a babyface, Adam Cole, goes up against the New Japan IWGP United States champion version of Kenny Omega, that would be an absolutely wonderful way of getting Adam Cole all the way into that top babyface spot, if it is, in fact, his for the taking. And it's someone's, because Moxley's been there. Hangman Page, I love him. I've loved the journey. But ultimately, as World Heavyweight Champion, I don't think he was unanimously, universally considered a great one. So it is Cole's spot for the taking. Kenny Omega as a heel could facilitate that. Or if they are insisting that Adam Cole's going to be a heel, and you know every other booker in North America for some reason has thought this for virtually all of his career, Bobby Fish I don't think is coming back. That's just an instinct I have. Kyle O'Reilly, sadly, is seemingly a long way away from returning. I think an act, or two acts rather, that could complement one another wonderfully and add depth to that trios division and have history. Adam Cole could reunite with the Kingdom. The Kingdom have surprised everyone, other than the ones who have been watching them during the pandemic, of their work and ability and how good and how overlooked. And they're kind of a sentimental / cult favorite. It's almost contrarian at this point to think they're bad. That's how fast that narrative. And yes, they're a low-level act, so it's only a small amount of people talking about this. I'm sorry. I will let you get a word in edgeways at some point. I realise I am rambling. But what a compliment that could be. They work excellently as a unit. Bennett and Taven just keep getting better and better. They're maturing wonderfully as workers. And what they lack in star aura and true... like just star power and profile and prestige and quite frankly at times charisma, Adam Cole's got enough for three people.
Yes.
So that trio's feud of the Kingdom with Adam Cole versus the Elite could be different gravy.
I will say this, and this is very much in the realm of fantasy booking, beyond anything to do with the Elite. I think we all know at this point that there is almost nothing in the Venn diagram with the Elite and CM Punk. That little... overlapping bit of the Venn diagram was completely empty, save for Adam Cole. Beloved by, obviously, the Elite, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, and deeply respected by CM Punk, the name check, the infamous now, press conference with the name check.
He was in the worst mood of all time, an unshakably foul mood that he had apparently stewed in for months because he had rehearsed this.
Prepping the lines. And
you could tell how scripted it all was. He even said he blew up my spot when that script didn't go. He still found time. If you're in a bad mood, a foul mood, in fact, I can't say anything nice about anyone or think nicely about anyone or anything. And he's like, Adam Cole's a sweetheart, and I hope the best for him. So
what if he's the guy? What if he's the one that can get people back on terms, and then maybe, as a reward for that, figure into it, I want to watch Adam Cole versus CM Punk. I've just said it, and I want to watch it because CM Punk versus everybody. But in terms of if there's a lot of avenues in which we've discussed how maybe they could eventually come back together and do business, that would be another one. Because from the first day Adam Cole arrived in AEW, he was kind of subtly challenging Kenny Omega's place at the top of the company.
Yeah,
he considered himself the alpha of the Elite, the Super Elite, whatever, and it was kind of put out there that it was going to be a matter of time. We imagine then with Cole as the heel and, as Sidgwick says, taking the Young Bucks.
And Omega thought he'd be back by February.
Yeah, so there was always that. That was something they were definitely cooking up that couldn't happen. So the prospect of any fantasy scenario where, we talk about FTR and things like that, any scenario where Punk's back involved, the idea that Adam Cole either links up or works against a guy that clearly respected him in CM Punk as part of what would have to be an on-screen rivalry between those two sides is where it's captivating.
Yeah.
There's still so many avenues you can go down with Cole and the Elite with or without CM Punk, but that would just be an incredible ingredient to it.
It's really, you put anyone's name in a conversation with Adam Cole and I'm excited by it. I'm glad to see him back, but I didn't expect Punk to come out on this podcast, got to be honest.
He's right now, he's kind of a fitting surrogate for Punk in that FTR trio group as well. Cole and the Revival had previous from NXT. He could see them as an avenue to the Young Bucks, resentful of the Young Bucks going with Kenny instead of him, so he goes with their biggest rivals. You could fairly easily narratively tie that together.
There's the Sean Brett thing as well, where they've got kind of incredibly diametrically opposed values and philosophies about what wrestling should be and who their favourites are and the styles, but that would be a good swerve, I guess, a good twist.
They're both baby faces and they're both going to be involved in title feuds going forward. But I'd quite like to see Adam Cole versus Bryan Danielson at some point.
Yeah.
Considering the brief...
The Saudi SmackDown rematch. Yeah.
So I talk about MJF there, and I'm presuming MJF successfully defends against Bryan Danielson at Revolution. Next up could be Adam Cole, and could, as much as we have sat here before and said MJF holds the titles throughout 2023 for the whole bidding war of 2024 shtick, that things change. Could he beat MJF?
Yeah, or at least he could certainly be positioned against him as somebody believable to beat him. I think it was like 7 days ago where on another podcast I said I was so impressed with the booking of Ricky Starks after he lost to MJF that I could see him being the one, say, a year down the road. If I'm comparing and contrasting promos from last night's Dynamite, I'm picking Adam Cole all day long. It was a great night for Cole and not such a great night for Starks.
It's a terrible night for Ricky Starks.
Yeah.
Terrible.
And, you know, so much can change over the length of what we expect will be quite a long MJF run. I certainly wouldn't rush to it. Cole has... laid out the challenge. He wants to be the top of the mountain. That is the AEW champion. He finds himself a newly minted babyface while the champion is a top heel. Of course, it sells itself and it's kind of telling you now that at some point down the road it's going to happen. I think Cole would be a really interesting... When we talk about the wrestlers that we have all imagined that when MJF's time will come to lose the title, it's going to be a bigger story than that. It's going to be about basically saving the soul of AEW because it's going to be rescuing that title from the talons of WWE. That's presumably the route they're going to go down with this story.
If they still can.
If they still can by then, yeah. It was always supposed to be a nice, fitting tribute to what Punk was doing with the Ring of Honor title when he signed for WWE. That was always going to be this brilliant and improved tribute to that. Cole would fit as much as anybody else. He, on last night's show, as part of like a rah-rah element of the speech, was saying that he was here in the greatest wrestling company in the world. We know he's got nothing but nice and professional things to say about his time with Triple H and NXT, but there's never been a time to be more in love with AEW versus what WWE now is. So it just depends where the character is by then. I wouldn't want it to happen now, but I would absolutely love it down the line. I think if you rush to it, it's a bit like what Sid was saying about Cole competing for a mid-card title. If you rush to it now, you kind of have to put MJF over. And we've seen before when a contender calls the shot and loses, it's like a really, really hard road back. So I would give MJF a couple more pay-per-view cycles first and keep Cole there or thereabouts bubbling under in the meantime, because he's not the wrestler that you just, when he's working regularly, he's just not the wrestler that you forget about. He's going to always keep himself in the conversation.
For me, it's very interesting because when the conversation, and I never agreed with this, between All Out and Full Gear was MJF is too popular, he has to turn babyface. And I was always insistent. There's two reasons why this absolutely does not need to happen. One is that if MJF turns babyface and it just doesn't take, it just ruins the credibility of this character that he has perfected and that he's lived in full gimmick 24/7 for as long as we've known him as wrestling fans.
It's like Austin turning back babyface after being a heel.
Yeah,
and I
that
felt the
never
same
works.
because he's had a year being a coward and it never quite works after that.
That's the thing with MJF and the character he's playing. At some point, I think he'll play a babyface and be a great one, but I personally don't want to see it for years and years and years. If this guy's gone to the lengths of living the gimmick 24/7, it would just cheapen it. And what a waste that would be for how much everyone has invested in it, not least of which MJF himself. And the second argument I had for why that shouldn't happen is that AEW is incredibly, because it's so difficult post-NWO, I guess, it's a babyface factory. It's incredible. There's so many great and different babyfaces. Moxley is like just the epitome of babyface ideals. Every time a babyface does something stupid, I say to myself, I wouldn't see John Moxley doing that, ever. Orange Cassidy's a completely different but great babyface. Hangman Page has completely redefined what a babyface means for this generation. Like, there's just tons. Eddie Kingston, like, how can you not root for that guy?
Darby Allin was one of the few wrestlers that obviously appeals to kids. So few do, and he does.
Yeah, absolutely. So they've got a production line of things you make organically, right? However, before the news of Adam Cole coming back, well, before it actually happened, and I'm prone to recency bias, so I might change my mind on this in a month, right? Every AEW champion so far, there's been a natural successor, and they've been really good at kind of hinting towards who that is and making you want it with a really good arc. So you had Chris Jericho with John Moxley. Then when Kenny Omega first started to explode with that Sunny Kiss squash, you were like, give him the belt, make him the champion. And then, of course, they built wonderfully to Hangman Page, and then CM Punk was just the top star in the company, so that had to happen. And then in the background, the CM Punk MJF feud was so instantly seminal that you said, well, you have to strap him up now and next.
MJ said, like, one day I'll ruin your life.
Yeah. And is there one just unanimous, they are messing everything up if they don't go with this choice for MJF's successor? I don't know if it's because it's very early in his reign. I'm very much enjoying it. The potential it holds is vast, but there's not one person or talent where I'm thinking has to be him next. It was Eddie Kingston, but my God, I've been kind of conditioned by the booking at this point to think that's a naive thought. I don't want to think that. I love Eddie Kingston, but it's a long way to get him to that level. For me, it's Eddie Kingston or Adam Cole. If, like I've said, like I was watching NXT, we were reviewing it on this podcast, and I felt guilty for making the same single point every single week as 2020 was just dismal. Adam Cole has to be the babyface. Like, people are desperate for him to be the babyface at this point. We went to TakeOver New York. We're very lucky to do so. And it was like, this guy's an absolute megastar babyface. Yeah. And it's been 4 years nearly since that time, and he still hasn't had a proper babyface run in a North American major. And I just find that absolutely incredible. And it's not just my personal feeling. That was one of the loudest buildings you'll ever hear. And ultimately, Adam Cole, quarter hour-wise, was a massive draw for NXT comparative to what everybody else was. He was head and shoulders the most interesting and captivating on an objective metrics level. People thought he was the star of the show. So maybe it is cool.
People remember from that dreadful time was when he eviscerated Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross was being pushed as the NXT's top star, and he couldn't hang with Adam Cole.
Like, this call and response that Adam Cole does, it is incredibly fun to shout along with.
Yes.
But people wouldn't do that for a guy who wasn't Adam Cole. If someone like, I don't know, I don't want to be harsh and mention anyone, but if anybody else virtually had that same call and response, it wouldn't be as fun to sing along to. And look, Adam Cole's got this reputation. It's like the best guy, the absolute best guy. There's like about 5 you can be sure aren't just degenerates or worse in pro wrestling. Like, Moxley's there, Cole's there.
Cesaro seems all right, doesn't he?
Yeah. Seems all right.
I think he actually is in like Adam Cole's Twitch group as well. I think I'm sure they've got like
Look, I'm doing a bit. I'm sure
there's not many of them though. Doesn't feel like there's many.
Doesn't feel like there's many. I'm sure there's way more. But Adam Cole seems to be the guy that you can sort of rely on. And what more do you want from a babyface? Yeah. You want to rely on them.
Well, it's just great to have him back, to be perfectly honest. But let us know your thoughts on what you're hoping for, what to expect from Adam Cole in AEW going forward in the comment section or on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE, where you can follow all 3 of us. You can follow Michael Hamflett at
Michael Hamflett.
You can follow Michael Sidgwick at
M. Sidgwick.
You can follow me at Adam Wilborn. Follow us all at WhatCultureWWE. And make sure you subscribe to What Culture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. But for now, it's been Get the Table. My thanks to the Dadley Boyz. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.